Janavallabha Givaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijākācārya Ashrutarasthata Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Jagat Guru, Savior of the whole universe, Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem Sa Goshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki Vrindavan Dham ki मथुरा धाम की द्वारका धाम की जगन्नाथ पुरी धाम की मायापुर नवदीप धाम की गंगमाई की जमुनमाई की भक्ति देवी की तुलसी देवी की सावेर भक्त वृंद की श्रील प्रभुपाद की श्रील प्रभुपाद की श्रील प्रभुपाद की गौर प्रेमानंदी. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shlaka Chakshurunmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 22, I believe. Text 10, right? I can read this more easily. Yada tu bhavata shila Shruta Rupa Vaya Gunan Ashranot Naradat Esha Tvai Asit Krita Nishchaya Yadatu Bhavata Shita Yadatu Bhavata Shila Shruta Rupa Vayo Gunan Shruta Rupa Vayo Gunan Ashrano Naradadesha Ashrano Naradadesha Tvayasit Krita Nishchaya Tvayasit Krita Nishchaya Yadatu Bhavata Shila Shruta Rupa Vayo Gunan Ashrano Naradadesha Tvayasit Krita Nishchaya Bhavata Shruta Rupa Gunan Ashrano Naradadesha Tvayasit Krita Nishchaya Yadatu Bhavata Shila Shruta Rupa Vayo Gunan Ashrano Naradadesha Tvayasit Krita Nishchaya Bhavata Shila Shruta Rupa Vayo Gunan Ashrano Naradadesha Tvayasit Krita. Any ladies want to chant? Yadatu Bhavata Shila Shruta Rupa Vayo Gunan Ashrano Naradadesha Tvayasit Krita Nishchaya. Very well chanted. The best of all. Synonyms. Yada, when. Tu, but. Bhavata, your. Shila, noble character. Shruta, learning. Rupa, beautiful appearance. Vayaha, youth. Gunan, virtues. Ashrnot, heard. Naradat, from Narada Muni. Esha, Devahuti. Tvai, in you. Asit, became. Krita Nishchaya, fixed in determination. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The moment she heard from the sage Narada of your noble character, learning, beautiful appearance, youth, and other virtues, she fixed her mind upon you. Please repeat. The moment she heard from the sage Narada of your noble character, learning, beautiful appearance, youth, and other virtues, she fixed her mind upon you. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The girl Devahuti did not personally see Kardama Muni, nor did she personally experience his character or qualities, since there was no social intercourse by which she could gain such understanding. But she heard about Kardama Muni from the authority of Narada Muni. Hearing from such an authority is a better experience than gaining personal understanding. She heard from Narada Muni that Kardama Muni was just fit to be her husband. Therefore, she became fixed in her heart that she would marry him, and she expressed her desire to her father, who therefore brought her before him. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachai. The moment she heard from the sage Narada of your noble character, learning, beautiful appearance, youth, and other virtues, she fixed her mind upon you. So, simply by hearing from Narada Muni, which was better than gaining personal experience, Devahuti fixed her mind upon Kardama Muni. Similarly, simply by hearing from Srila Prabhupada, we got our minds fixed on the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And if we can take this liberty to extend this metaphor a little, Srila Prabhupada, and hearing from Srila Prabhupada is better than having personal understanding or experience of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is that possible? That seems to be what we can gain from this. So there's nothing better for us than hearing from the authority of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Savior of the whole universe. Most people don't know about what's going on other planets, but Srila Prabhupada is not only saving this world, he's saving the whole universe. So we will talk a little about Srila Prabhupada today. I was very fortunate to meet the devotees in 1971 and hitchhiked to New York from Atlanta, where I had joined with another devotee, to see Srila Prabhupada for the first time, July 2nd, 1972. And when he arrived in the airport, Srila Prabhupada he wasn't walking. At least that's what it looked like to me. He was, I don't know how to describe it, floating or sailing or like a swan swimming in the water. He was just, and there was a big kirtan, all the devotees were in ecstasy, and half the devotees, I think, were crying uncontrollably. I certainly was. I couldn't. And I said, I saw, this is my real, eternal spiritual father. I don't want to do anything else except serve this personality. The most interesting thing about that airport arrival to me was afterwards when Srila Prabhupada was seated in a room the devotees had arranged, Vyasa-san, and the press was there also to meet him. And Srila Prabhupada began speaking. And I was suddenly stunned, kind of strange to say this, but I realized that hearing from Srila Prabhupada in person, directly there, was no different than having heard his tapes, his cassette tapes of his lectures. Usually we say it the other way around, right? That hearing from Prabhupada's tapes, or CDs, or whatever we're using now, is non-different from personally hearing from Srila Prabhupada, right? Believe it or not, Prabhupada is absolute. So hearing from Srila Prabhupada when he's directly sitting in front of you is non-different from hearing his tapes. So we should believe that when we're hearing Prabhupada's tapes, he is personally sitting there in front of us, talking to us. That's a fact. Anyway, 2 days later, on July 4th, 1972, Srila Prabhupada was giving initiations, so I was fortunate that I was given permission to get initiated by him. And the first words Srila Prabhupada ever spoke to me personally were, "So, what are the 4 rules?" So I somehow managed to get them out. No illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating. And Srila Prabhupada said, "Your name is Amogha Lila." Amogha Lila. He said it twice, just like that, relishing the sound of that wonderful name of Krishna. I didn't know what it meant, of course. Anyway, so I offered obeisances, he gave me my beads. And then Hridayananda Maharaj was there, and very soon after the fire sacrifice was finished, he came up to me and he said, "Amogha Lila means spotless pastimes." He knew. And he said, "It's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto." So I looked it up and I found out that Amogha Lila means Krishna, especially referring to his pastimes of creating the material world. So, I think that means I'm... So, maybe that means, I don't know, that I'm destined to stay in the material world eternally, to enjoy Krishna's pastimes of creating the material world. Anyway, that was my first conversation with Srila Prabhupada. And that same day, devotees brought down some watermelon from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's Mahaprasadam, Mahaprasadam, Maha, greatest prasadam. And I got a piece of watermelon. And I put it in my mouth, and I was bewildered. I said, "What is this? This doesn't taste like watermelon. It tastes like there must have been honey put on the watermelon. It was so sweet." Even to this day, I can't believe. Maybe devotees did put honey on it. But in any case, it was so sweet. Even now, as I think about it, I can remember that experience and how I was bewildered by it. How could this watermelon be so sweet? But it was Prabhupada's remnant. So the next time after that visit to New York that I saw Srila Prabhupada was when he came to Atlanta. I had joined the movement in Atlanta, but I had left with Satsvarup Maharaj's BBT library party. I had joined that party, but Satsvarup Maharaj brought us all back to Atlanta to meet Srila Prabhupada. So many things happened. Before I joined the movement, I was studying for a master's degree in biology. So Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, at that time Swarup Damodar, he wanted me to join the Bhaktivedanta Institute. So I got to sit in with Prabhupada. Had several meetings about the BI. It was just starting. But the only time Srila Prabhupada said anything to me personally was on the walk, morning walk, that one day in Atlanta. And having been involved in these discussions about science, I was thinking about science, and so I asked Srila Prabhupada. I built up the courage to ask Srila Prabhupada. So I said, I can't remember the exact words, and I haven't been able to find this. I don't know if it wasn't recorded or I haven't found it yet, but that conversation, I remember the purport was, I asked Srila Prabhupada, so the scientists are really in Maya. Something like that, I said. And Srila Prabhupada responded very quickly. And I can't remember the exact words, but he said, there's so much in Maya, it's like they're within Maya, within another Maya, that they can never get out. Even if they get out of the Maya that they're in, they'll be in another Maya. And in maybe another, it's like layer upon layer of Maya for those who are absorbed in material science. And I don't have enough time to tell about the other things that happened in Atlanta, but I'll just mention one thing. At one point, Srila Prabhupada on the Vyasasan was singing. Their Gornitai deities were newly installed, and Prabhupada had just come from Caracas, where there were Gornitai deities had been newly installed. So Prabhupada started singing Parama Karuna Pavadvijana Nittai Gaura Chanda Sabhavatar Sar Shiromani Kevala Ananda Kanda. So these two, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, he was looking at the deities, and he could not talk for very long. Well, first, he took the mridanga himself, because it's a different beat. It's not our 1, 2, 3 beat. It's a 1, 2, 1, 2. So devotees hadn't learned how to play with that beat. So Srila Prabhupada took the mridanga himself, and he played. And then, when he started talking, he could only talk for a few minutes, and then he got choked up thinking about Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. It was very, very sweet to be there. A lot of things happened. I was outside. The temple room was packed. It was a big new temple, big room. And hundreds of devotees, I guess, were there. So there wasn't room. So I went outside and was looking in the window. Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan was ready. Right? And it was cold, winter. It was a little bit foggy. The window was a little bit foggy. So at one time, I noticed the reflections of the trees in back. And then I looked at Srila Prabhupada, and I suddenly realized Srila Prabhupada appears to be here in the material world, but actually he's in the spiritual world. And wherever Srila Prabhupada is, becomes the spiritual world. So we think right now we're in the material world. We're not in the material world. We're in this New Dwarka is part of the spiritual world. Sometimes we can't see it because we're looking the wrong way, but So the next time I got to speak to Srila Prabhupada was in Chicago. Prabhupada was coming to Chicago for the Rath Yatra, and many devotees were there. The Tamal Krishna Maharaj and the Radha Damodar party, and so because I was in the library party, I got to go on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. So we were reading the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam was being translated by Srila Prabhupada and published by the devotees. So I think it was 4th canto. I don't remember the exact place, but you can find it if you're interested, if you don't believe what I'm saying, because this is kind of stunning. It was shocking to me when I read it. But in a purport there, Srila Prabhupada says, even 50 years ago in Hindu society, a man would not see his wife during the day. There was a separate part of the house for the women. So I asked Srila Prabhupada, I built up the courage to ask Srila Prabhupada, is this the standard we should, or should we, I didn't even say try, should we adopt this standard in ISKCON? I mean, I thought he'd say something like, well, it's obviously not practical now, but Srila Prabhupada's answer was, and I'll try to repeat as much as I can exactly how he said it. He paused. Prabhupada paused for quite a while. I think he was asking Krishna what to say, because he paused for a while, and then he said, again, he did a I think I can remember this. It's on tape, you can hear it somewhere. And then he said, yes, because women are like fire and men are like butter. Srila Prabhupada quite often used this analogy. The women are like fire and men are like butter. So that meant in the 1920s, because this was in the 1970s. In the 1920s in India, this was, Prabhupada said, this is how at least the cultured people lived. And later, when I was studying for my PhD at UC Berkeley, I found a book written by a scholar about Indian culture, Brahminical culture, by a woman scholar. And she described how this was the practice in the families that she was studying, Brahmin families that she was studying for her academic work, that the men would even sleep separately from the woman. What to speak of not seeing his wife during the day. I guess they would have meals together maybe, or the women would serve their husbands the meals. But, so they would see each other. But then the men would go to the part of the house where the men stay, and the women would go to the part of the house where the women stay. And the mother-in-law, or the mother-in-law of the woman, would find out from her daughter-in-law when was the most appropriate time for conceiving a child. And at that day of the month, the mother-in-law would put a piece of chana, or garbanzo bean, in the drink that the husband was having that night. I mean, the milk or lassi, something, I'm not sure. And he would know, oh, this is the night I'm supposed to go to my wife. So Srila Prabhupada taught us we should have sex, married people should have sex with their spouse only once a month, right? That's pretty difficult for us to do, especially if we're sleeping in the same bed. But if you're sleeping in a different part of the house, and you don't even see your wife at night, it's at least much easier. So this is Vedic culture. Everything. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said, when we were young, he said, we were attracted to the girls, but there was no opportunity to meet them and talk with them. That's the way Indian culture was set up. And I was quite shocked when I was in Pakistan. Srila Prabhupada sent me to Pakistan. Maybe I'll tell about that later. But I think this is a very significant point, because even today, well, this was 40 years ago maybe, in Pakistan, I heard about a Hindu gentleman who had a village. He was a leader of this village, and he had, I don't know, hundreds, many hundreds, or thousands maybe even, of villagers. They were all Hindus in Pakistan. And this village was right on the desert. Beyond the village there was nothing but sand, going all the way to India, I guess. So, I can't remember how, if he invited us to come, or some devotees told me about this place and we should go. But anyway, so we met him, and he immediately became a life member and gave a nice donation, and I met him 3 or 4 times. He wanted us. He asked us to come as often as we could to preach to his villagers. He wanted us to help him. He was a kshatriya, and he knew the Brahmanas. He thought I was a Brahmin anyway. He knew the Brahmanas are supposed to help the kshatriyas preach to the praja, to the citizens, and so we did that. We went there quite often and did Harinam Sankirtan throughout the village openly. In Pakistan there weren't very many places where we could do that, but there we could. So after I had been there at least 3 or 4 times, he told me once, my wife and daughters want to see you, they think that you're a sadhu, you know. So they want to see you. So I didn't even know. I mean, I assumed he had a wife, but I didn't know he had a wife. I had no idea he had daughters. I'd never seen them. I'd never heard about them. So he took me to a different building in a courtyard with high fences. And men never go in that compound. Only relatives. And maybe some domestic servants, you know. But no, men can't even go in there. This is Vedic culture. You know. Anyway, so I got to meet them and preach a little, but it's true what Prabhupada said. And it's even now, or it was very recently in Pakistan, where, you know, in India the government fell under the control of Western influences or whatever, and Bollywood imitated Hollywood, and India has become very degraded as a result, like America is extremely degraded, as we heard in the last class, what the young people are doing. It's true. Of course, California is the worst of all. I'll just mention one thing. My good son, who's a very high-level devotee, but he did go to college, he had an assignment in a sociology class, his first year of sociology, and the students were required to interview all the other students in the class and then write a paper about that. You know, they could choose whatever they wanted to interview all. So he chose to interview and ask questions about sex. And he reported to us when he said, and this is freshman year of college, he said, I don't know if there were 35 or 40 students in the class. He said, I'm the only virgin in my class, my sociology class. So it's not 85%, which was the figure I think we heard the other day, by the age of 18. 85% of young Americans. In California, it's 100% by the time they reach the age of 18. So this is so-called American culture, but in Pakistan, there's still considerable Vedic culture, because the government didn't interfere. You know, in India, the government really interfered. So Srila Prabhupada somehow arranged this sort of place in Pakistan where we could preach openly, do Sankirtan, and I could personally witness that it's really true that in Vedic culture the men have a separate part of the house, or even a separate building in that case. So that was in Chicago. Then Srila Prabhupada changed his mind at the last minute. He did initiations, huge initiation, all Radha Damodar devotees, but at the last minute he decided to go to Philadelphia instead for the Rath Yatra, which was on the same day as the Chicago Rath Yatra. So we were all disappointed that Prabhupada, but that's Srila Prabhupada's independence, you know, right? He heard, they invited him, and he heard, and he knew that they needed it more or something, and he'd already been for a couple of days in Chicago, so he just went off Philadelphia. So the next time was the Mayapur Vrindavan festival, when I got to see Srila Prabhupada. And after Vrindavan, Prabhupada had a program in Modi Nagar, not the same as the Prime Minister of India now. It's a very common name, like Smith in English. So but there's a different, very wealthy, also Gujarati business family. They had a whole town, big factories there. So they had set up a incredible, it was like a spaceship, this huge Vyasasan made with silver, at least looked like silver. There are photographs of it, it's amazing. And so Prabhupada had a wonderful program there. And then afterwards, Srila Prabhupada went to the quarters where he was staying, and he was going to meet some guests. So I got a chance to go in there and sit with Srila Prabhupada, and a young man came who worked in the factories, or worked in the Modi's factory, and he said to Srila Prabhupada, speaking in Hindi, I want to become your disciple. I want to surrender to you. I want to travel with you. So I was thinking, wow, Jai Srila Prabhupada. What did Srila Prabhupada say? He said, are you married? The young man said, yes. So then, do you have children? I think maybe he had one child. He was quite young, maybe one or maybe two children, I think. He said, yes. So Srila Prabhupada immediately said, no, you cannot. You have to take care of your wife and children. And I was shocked, because in those days, in America, anybody who wanted to move into the temple was never rejected, Maybe tested a little bit, but so it was a real education in India. I was then assigned to India because at that year Prabhupada had asked all the GBCs to give one man to India, so Satsuru Maharaj chose me because I was born and raised in India. My parents were Christian missionaries there in India and Pakistan. So I won't go into all the stories. I was made the, what was it called then? Public Affairs, I think, officer for ISKCON India, because I knew Hindi, I knew the local language well. So I traveled all over India, but I got to finally to Bombay because my visa had expired, and we were told, this was during Indira Gandhi's emergency rule. It was very, very dangerous in India. People were afraid, especially in North India. People were very, very afraid to do anything because there were stories that somebody on a bus had happened to say something about Indira with a little negative tone, and he was arrested. The police came and arrested him. It was like that. It was a really horrible situation. Anyway, but in Bombay there was a wonderful man who worked in the government office there, and he was not allowed to extend our visas. It was the orders from Delhi. But he would take the visa application. He told me, you can give me a visa application. I cannot send it to Delhi like I'm supposed to because they would reject it, but I'll keep it here in my file. And it can stay for a year there. And you can stay for a year like that. So I got to stay by Krishna's mercy. Then I got a lot of chances to talk, much more to talk with Prabhupada, and I'll tell a couple of those. I have to end pretty soon, so I will say 2 or 3 stories. So one day, Prabhupada was not able to go on his morning walks anymore because of his health. So he was just walking on the roof of the building where he was staying for his morning walk. So I had heard that Srila Prabhupada had said that when the devotees come to India, they become Ravanas. There was a Hindi saying that he quoted. So I thought, boy, this is bad. So I asked Srila Prabhupada about that statement. Srila Prabhupada, what did you mean? So he, can't remember, this is also recorded. But the way I remembered it, what Srila Prabhupada said was, well, he asked me, anyway, I said that is it because we're not following the regulative principles? Because devotees were a little lax with prasadam especially. We had a cook who was actually a Brahmin, so-called, and with hired cooks. We had a hired cook, which was unheard of in America, of course. And so Srila Prabhupada was upset because he said this man is a smoker and he's cooking. So he was not allowed to cook for the deities, but for the devotees. So I thought this was what's causing all the devotees to go astray. So Prabhupada's answer was very sharp. He said, you do not know? And then he said, this means you have become Ravana. Well, that's the way I remembered it, but then I looked in the conversations, and what actually Prabhupada said was he turned to somebody else, and he said, "This means he has become Ravana." So I was... Good instruction, huh? Upendra Prabhu was Prabhupada's servant, and he was there, and then he saw how I was devastated by this, so he came up to me immediately. He said, "No, don't worry, no." But that's what Prabhupada said. So, you have a Ravana here. No, you can't see the 10 heads, but... So the last pastime I will mention, because our time is up, is the last day Srila Prabhupada was... No, I have to do one more first. This is even better. So, it was very hard to get cow's milk, believe it or not, in Bombay in those days. I was the vice president and manager of the temple under Giriraj Swami, not Swami then, but Giriraj. And so we had to get cow's milk, which was very difficult. So I decided I would personally go and find a place where they have cows, and I would go there and I would, because they would mix buffalo's milk with it if we didn't watch it. So I would watch them milk the cow, and I would take the cow's milk myself to the temple. Then Srila Prabhupada arrived in Bombay, and of course he wanted cow's milk. So Sumati Morarji, who sent Srila Prabhupada to America on her ship, lived just a block or two down the road from the temple. So I thought, this is going to be the best cow's milk. She had cows. So I went to meet her, and I said, Srila Prabhupada's here, and he needs cow milk. So okay. She said, "Oh, yes, we will." Yes, we will send cow's milk for Prabhupada. She loved Prabhupada so much. So the next thing I heard, when Srila Prabhupada got what I thought was cow's milk from Sumati Morarji, although I had not watched it the cow being milked, Prabhupada, I don't know if he even tasted it, but he smelled it, and he said, "Are you trying to kill me?" What would the people who say that Prabhupada was poisoned say about that? Prabhupada said, I was the one who was trying to kill him. "Are you trying to kill me? This is buffalo's milk." And then finally, the last day Prabhupada was in Bombay, I got to be in his room with him every 2 hours? Yeah, there were 2-hour shifts, and 2 devotees would be with Srila Prabhupada every minute of the day for 24 hours. So from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., I think it was 4 to 6 or 4 to... Anyway, it was started at 4 before Mangalarti. And Madhava Prabhu, who later became Bhakti Madhav Maharaj, I think, he was there with me. So he was very, very humble. So he stood at Prabhupada's feet. So I stood beside Prabhupada. He was under a mosquito net on his bed. Prabhupada could not even sit up by himself. He was very, very weak. So he was just lying there in the bed. And after Mangalarti, it was silent. So I thought, Srila Prabhupada always likes to hear the holy name. So I started chanting japa loudly enough so Prabhupada would hear the holy name. And Prabhupada said, "Doing, knowing." I couldn't understand what he said. Prabhupada could hardly speak. It was very, very difficult for him to speak. So I got up real close to the mosquito net and I said, "What, Srila Prabhupada?" And he said, "Don't make noise." I'm such a Ravana. Even when I chant Hare Krishna, it is noise disturbs Srila Prabhupada. I wanted to fall through I just wanted to disappear. And a little while later, Prabhupada said, "Fly." I couldn't understand what he said, so again I went up right next to the mosquito net. "What, Srila Prabhupada?" "Fly." There was a fly buzzing around inside the mosquito net, so I had to get in the mosquito net, all around. I'd never touched Srila Prabhupada in my life. I'd been a devotee since 71, this was 77, so 6 years. I'd never touched Srila Prabhupada. So I was scared, actually. What would happen if my chanting Hare Krishna disturbs him? What if I accidentally touch him? So I had to carefully get out the fly without. Fortunately, I was able to finally do it without touching Prabhupada. And then the next thing that happened, quite a bit later, Srila Prabhupada was lying there on his back in the bed, and he put up his hand. So I was standing there outside the mosquito net, and Prabhupada, I had no idea what Prabhupada meant. Why did Prabhupada do that? Fortunately, Upendra Prabhu, yeah, it was Upendra. Upendra Prabhu was Prabhupada's servant, and he said, that means Srila Prabhupada wants you to massage his hand. I froze, literally. I was afraid, really. I was afraid to, I just didn't. So Upendra Prabhu, seeing that I'm kind of not doing anything, he took my hand and he said, just like this, and he showed me how to massage Prabhupada's hand. So I went in under the mosquito net and took Prabhupada's hand and started massaging it. Then after, I don't remember, a few minutes, after not too long, Prabhupada raised his other hand. Now I got confused now, because Upendra had left. What am I supposed to do now? Am I supposed to put this hand down and massage that hand? Or anyway, somehow I decided what I'm going to do is, so I was massaging Prabhupada with both hands, so I was massaging his left hand, so I decided what I'll do, I'll keep massaging his left hand with my right hand, and I'll reach over and massage his right hand, which he had just raised with my left hand. So I was doing that, and then it's absolutely impossible to describe this properly. I don't know how to do it. I've tried many times, but I can't do it. But the best I can do is to say that an ocean of prema, an ocean of love, flowed out of Prabhupada. It was like an ocean because it was like a very, very powerful force, but it was also very, very gentle. But it was just like love. And Prabhupada didn't say anything, but I felt he was saying, I love you. I love you. I love you. Even though I'm a Ravana, even though my saying the holy name disturbs Prabhupada, Prabhupada still loves me. Prabhupada loves us all so much. And in the subsequent difficulties in ISKCON, all I would have to do was remember that. Love. Prabhupada loves me. And it helped me get through all the things that we went through, which was quite difficult after Prabhupada left. So, I don't know if we have time for questions or comments, but I should. If anybody want to ask anything, or... Yes?
Yes, so you mentioned Prabhupada being the savior of the universe. What does the universe need saving from?
What does the universe mean what? I didn't understand.
What does the universe need saving from?
Oh, from Maya, from illusion. We're all trapped. That's her job. Maya is also a devotee of Krishna, but her job is to keep us in illusion. So Prabhupada is saving the whole universe from illusion and suffering, the suffering that results from the illusion. Yes, Prabhu. He meant that I was Ravana. I mean, not that I was as great as Ravana, but that I was as fallen as Ravana. That's what Prabhupada said. When the devotees go to India, they become Ravana. I actually explained it a little bit more. He said, in the West, devotees, they do all the cooking, they do all the cleaning, but when they come to India, they become lazy, and they have to hire a cook, they have to hire a cleaner. Of course, we had big projects, big temples, and there weren't very many devotees, and devotees were needed for preaching, so that was our justification for hiring somebody to cook. But that's what Prabhupada said, that devotees become Ravana, like they have to hire a cook and a cleaner. Thank you very, very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki.